The Dungeons & Dragons Magic the Gathering set has shown us a bunch of fascinating creatures, and today's batch of spoilers is no exception. Standing head and shoulders above the rest of the cards that were spoiled today are two mythic legendary dragons. Now, these dragons are both incredibly powerful in terms of game mechanics, but also have really awesome backstories to them as well. So much so that I genuinely couldn't decide which one I wanted to do a video focusing on. So I decided instead, we're going to double down and talk about two epic dragons.
Magic. I am a wizard. History. I'm an old wizard. The magic historian. My bones hurt.
Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. My friends, I hope the day finds you well. If you're watching the video the day that I've released it, it is Friday, and we're getting ready to launch into an enjoyable weekend, so I hope you have a good one. We are here to talk today about two epic, insane dragons, okay? They are both incredibly powerful from a gameplay perspective, but also have a pre-built backstory that was created in Dungeons & Dragons that adds an interesting level of depth and flavor to them. So we're going to start out by talking about Imrith, because that's the blue one, and we'll save the green one for next, even though I do believe that the blue one is technically a stronger card, because make no mistake, Imrith here is absolutely bonkers. So, Imrith Desert Doom is the name. I guess if they named a card after me, it would have to be Desert Doom, because I'm getting fat. Oh, I'm going to make myself sad. Let's not think about that. Okay, so 2 blue and 3 for a 5/5 flying legendary dragon. Legendary dragons are satisfying, right? So, Imrith Desert Doom has Ward 4 as long as it's untapped. Now, Ward 4 is pretty significant. Ward is a brand new ability to Magic the Gathering. We never had it before Strixhaven. In the past, we had a different variation where essentially, as an additional cost to cast a spell, you would have to pay more mana. So if Imrith had been created in the past, then the ability would actually say, spells or abilities that target Imrith have an additional cost of 4 more mana as long as Imrith is untapped, right? So, the ward ability is technically stronger. Your opponent can cast a spell or activate an ability without realizing they need to pay that additional cost, and then you can be like, okay, are you going to pay for the ward cost? And if no, then you don't get to do anything. So, Imrith is difficult to deal with when it's untapped, right? The Ward 4 is a huge increase in the amount of mana you need to spend, right? And this card only costs 5 to put out, which means your opponent's not going to have a crazy amount of mana. By the time you cast Imrith, your opponent's probably going to be sitting around 5 or 6 mana. So unless they have a spell that costs 1 or 2 that can deal with Imrith, they're probably not going to be able to get around the warding very easily. But where the card gets really, really gross is with its combat ability. So whenever Imrith deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Then if you have fewer than 3 cards in hand, draw cards equal to the difference. This is bonkers to me. If you end up emptying your hand, if you can cast all the spells in your hand each turn, this is going to let you draw 3 cards a turn. It's literally a flying smash your opponent in the face, ancestral recall yourself style card, which is, it's absolutely insane. That's incredibly powerful. Like, you automatically get to draw a card no matter what. So even if you have more than 3 cards, you're going to get 1 card. But if you have no cards, you're drawing 3 cards. If you have 1 card, you're drawing 2 cards. It's pretty strong overall, right? And the artwork is pretty awesome. You've got this blue dragon, and this blue dragon resides out in the desert. You can see lightning flaring around it, which is cool because the blue dragons in Dungeons & Dragons actually have a lightning breath weapon, so I do like seeing that illuminate the sky in the background. I wonder what a thunder and lightning storm is like in the desert, because there would be no rain to accompany it. That would be a weird experience. But Imrith is an interesting being. They have a bunch of gargoyles. Imrith has a bunch of gargoyles that serve her and basically leads them on different forays or whatever, which is curious to start with because I've never heard of a dragon that lords over gargoyles. But Imrith is actually very much interested in learning to basically transubstantiate their essence into other beings. Imrith, through their travels, came across some really ancient arcane power, some really like old school lost magics, and by mastering them has learned how to traverse from body to body, wanting to steal the bodies of successive dragons. Essentially, a form of immortality, right? Now, the idea is in between those forms can have this sort of insubstantial mist form shape and then can use arcane abilities to go ahead and take over dragon after dragon after dragon, which is an amazing concept because dragons live for an incredibly long time to begin with. And as dragons age, they gain more powers. They gain the ability to cast more spells. Their breath weapon grows in strength. They increase the amount of hit points they have. They genuinely just get stronger and stronger and stronger as they age. Unlike humans, where you get stronger as you age up until a point, and then the inevitable decline comes in, right? So dragons are different in that regard, but they're not immortal. And so Imrith is seeking a level of immortality. And it'd be interesting to see how it would feel to go from being in the body of an elder dragon where you're incredibly powerful, and then all of a sudden being transferred into a young wormling where the form itself isn't that powerful, but you have all the knowledge and tricksiness of a dragon that's been around forever, and possibly, theoretically, maybe still some of the same spellcasting capabilities, right? Because there's a difference between dragons' innate abilities, like being able to breathe fire or lightning, for example, and then also the ability to cast spells, which is learned the same way that wizards learn spells, by studying them, committing them to memory, right? So maybe Imrith is able to actually carry the studied spells into younger worms that wouldn't even have the spell casting capability. And there's just a bunch of interesting flavor that goes along with the idea of a dragon that's obsessed with taking over bodies of other dragons. And I imagine at a certain point, you could actually use this as a way to weld, like Imrith is an evil dragon, but you could use the threat of Imrith to weld together a bunch of other dragons into a fighting force where basically it's like, look, I know that we don't normally work together. I know we fight and squabble against each other for treasure and all that sort of thing. But Imrith is a threat to all of us, right? Because while we all want each other's treasure hoards and things like that, we're not trying to take over each other's bodies. And Imrith will just grow in strength over time and eventually be able to consume us all one by one at her leisure. So I could see Imrith being used as a villain to motivate other evil dragons to join forces, which is a really cool concept. And ultimately, as I said, this feels like a really, really powerful card. 5 mana for a 5/5 is already solid. 5/5 flyer for 5 is a nice body to begin with. The fact that it can't be hit unless it's tapped allows you to put it out without fear of, basically, if you're, let's say you're playing mono blue, right? You're going to have counter spells most of the time to deal with problems. But if you tap out your mana to put out a big creature, you're not going to have your counter mana available to protect it. Well, Imrith has that built-in protection of warding. So you put it out, the ward will ideally keep it alive until you get to your next turn, at which point you have your counter mana available, and then you can swing in with it. If your opponent tries to do anything about it, you can counter it, and if you only have a couple of spells in your hand, you counter it, you're going to get to replace those spells through Imrith connecting with the combat damage, right? It's pretty amazing. You can either use counter magic to protect Imrith, or you can use bounce spells to get blockers out of the way to make sure it connects to give you more card draw. This card, to me, feels genuinely overpowered. It is incredibly strong, and I fully expect this to make a big impact, at least in standard, if not in other formats. The fact that it protects itself and replaces your card, like fills your card draw back up, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Now, let us turn to the big green dragon. Oh, never mind. Sorry. We have the alternate art. I forgot all about it in my haste to get to the green one. So this is the alternate version of Imrith. I have to admit, I don't like this artwork as much. It's got like kind of a weird unicorn like vibe to the front of the head. And also this dragon looks like it's not that intelligent. I don't know exactly why it feels that way, but it looks like a big dummy yelling through the sky, "Hey! Hey, I want your body! Hey, I want your body!" Like some clueless dude at a nightclub. You know what I'm saying? That just, when I look at him, I'm like, "Hey, I'm a unicorn!" Maybe that's why my brain skipped over the alternate art and didn't even think we had to talk about it. So, let's move on to the green dragon. This is Old Gnawbone! Alright, so Old Gnawbone is 2 black and 5 for a 7/7 flyer already. Yes! I mean, green, do you know how rarely we get genuine flying creatures that are beefy boys? That almost never happens. So I'm stoked about this. This will go in my big fat green tower. So 2 green and 5, 7/7 flyer. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, create that many treasure tokens. You're going to get an insane amount of treasure tokens. It's a very, very straightforward in that regard. I like the artwork with Old Gnawbone here at rest in front of some ancient ruins. You know what I mean? This looks like the ruins of some civilization. You can see a bunch of birds flying off in the background. Gnawbone looks just kind of chill. This is a very, very devious dragon. And actually, if you want to see what the dragon's real name is, it's here in the flavor text for the normal version of the card. The ancient green dragon, Clogliamater. Cloglimater. That sounds like something from Star Trek. Trek the Cloglimater. All right, anyways. The ancient green dragon, Clogalaga Ding Dong, is often seen with a mangled corpse dangling from her mouth. I'm surprised the flavor text doesn't have something to do with treasure. But either way, Old Gnawbone here is a very devious and greedy dragon, pulling some really shady nonsense. For example, just one of the things that Old Gnawbone has gotten up to is basically going and attacking a village, right? And then polymorphing themselves or otherwise disguising themselves as a silver dragon. Now understand that your green, red, blue, white dragons, those are all evil. But the metal dragons, gold, silver, those are good dragons. So Gnawbone disguises herself as a silver dragon, goes to the village and is like, "Hey, you need to basically hook me up and I will help you." You know, it's like, "Hey, I'll help you deal with Old Gnawbone. You know, maybe you give me some treasure," which seems a little bit odd for a silver dragon. But when you're afraid of a green dragon and a silver dragon shows up, you're just like, "Oh yeah, you want some treasure? Sure, no problem. We'll give you a reward." That's no issue at all, right? And then basically, Gnawbone just shows up and steals the treasure and then ends up having a battle between it and like a made-up silver dragon where it uses illusion magic to make it look like it's actually battling a silver dragon, but the whole time it's just smashing down all the fences around the village so it can come back later and steal the livestock. Just eat the livestock. And then on top of that, then afterwards, after a while of not being around, you know, a week later, Gnawbone shows up at the village and is like, "You sent that silver dragon to try and destroy me, and it failed. Now you have to pay me a bunch of gold so that I won't destroy your village because you've insulted me." So then the village is just like, "Okay, here, please, take all of our gold," and just bankrupts the village. It's so crazy, the level of greed. And the reason that Gnawbone is this extra level of greedy is because essentially what Gnawbone's trying to do is set them up to masquerade as a mortal. Gnawbone has seen human, elven, like high ladies, noble women who live a very good and rich life. And Gnawbone wants to live that life. Gnawbone basically wants to spend their time polymorphed as a lady of high power and standing, and so is essentially trying to figure out a way to gain enough treasure to set themselves up as a regular high noble, which is an amazing concept. Because if you're a dragon, why wouldn't you want to be a dragon? The idea that it's like, no, I want to live my life as the equivalent of a pamplemousse. That's French for, is that grapefruit? Or is that l'ananas? What is it? Pamplemousse? Pineapple. Anyways, I'm getting a little distracted here. The dragon wants to be pampered like a noble lady, which is amazing. You're a dragon. Why wouldn't you want to be a dragon? But it's like, no, I want to wear fine silk gowns, drink the finest beverages. Like, I love it. That's an amazing concept. On top of this card being an incredibly powerful dragon. I mean, this dragon looks pretty intense. Just kind of here in a glade standing up. What's with the crazy green glow that's coming up under Gnawbone? But I like the fact that there's like little statues in the glade. Like she's got some trappings of regular society, the kind of pillars and statues you would see in a city. So for me, these dragons are both very exciting cards. The blue one definitely feels more OP. This one feels more silly overkill in terms of you're already smashing your opponent, you get a bunch of treasure, but these dragons both work conceptually for me, both from a great to play with, and also they work well with the flavor. Everything ties together. So these are two well done Magic cards in my opinion. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, my friends. Are you excited about these dragons? Which one do you like more? I mean, I like this one more because I'm going to play with it, but the blue one is definitely way more powerful in my opinion. Anyhow, thanks for coming by, my friends. Big shout out to all my patrons. Thanks for supporting the channel. And I shall leave a link for all of you to my playlist of all my Dungeons & Dragons spoiler videos in case you want to listen to me yammer some more nonsense about cardboard rectangles. See you next time.